VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker. We are in week 17. The Vikings need to win 2 games and have the Rams or the Seahawks lose a single game in order for the purple team to get in the postseason. I'm here with Dakota Koep, our usual Friday guest. Tyler Ireland is en route to Minneapolis for Vikings-Packers. So he's not joining us, but I do have Dakota. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dustin?
Not bad. I'm going to start off. I'll preface this by saying that the Vikings they've gone 1-4 in the last 5 games. After that's the record they started with 1-4, then they won 5, then they go 1-4 again. Winning just one of those games, whether it's against the Bears or the Broncos or the Bengals or the Lions, all tight games, would have put them in an absolute driver's seat to reach the postseason. Now they have to get a tiny little bit of help and win their final 2 games. So I want to know, is the wind taken out of your sails after these 4 losses in the last 5 games?
I feel like it can't, given, like the Vikings Queen of Positivity thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
if it's done for me, I feel like then that's it. But it's not. I don't think it is. Obviously we have to win out, which the Packers probably a little bit easier said than done, but still fairly easy in the long run, especially since they don't have their stud on defense, but I'll get to that later. Plus with that us playing Detroit at the very end of the season, I know Dan Campbell has said that he isn't going to bench starters. He's not going to bench starters. I think come the game on Saturday against the Cowboys, week 18 will roll around. He'll be like, oh, maybe I should bench the starters. So I think that that'll make week 18 a little bit easier for us. The Rams do play the Niners week 18 as well, which I don't see why the Rams would win that personally. I don't think that the Niners are really cemented in a position right now unless they 100% are the first seed, although I don't know if that's true or not. Is that true?
Well, they are, but because they lost to the Ravens,
Hmm.
that was a big problem for them. So now, unless the Cardinals beat the Eagles in Philadelphia, the 49ers will have to play you would think they'll have to play their starters if the goal is to get the 1 seed. They don't have
Right.
that cushion anymore. If they beat the Ravens, they would be on cruise control to possibly not having to play starters in the final week.
Yeah, so I don't think we have to really worry about the Rams winning out. I feel like there's at least one loss there. And even if by some miracle they win out against the Niners, don't know how they'll manage to do that. The Seahawks do still play the Steelers, and I
Mhm.
feel like the Steelers are frisky enough that really anything could happen in that game. So I feel like, yeah, there is a lot of what ifs. There is a lot of like, well, this has to happen for this, but I feel like it is not completely out of our grasp yet. I feel like a lot of the what ifs are still reasonable, and I think that they are still, um, you know, we're not wishing on any stars. Sorry, my dog is like wanting attention right now. She's very excited about the Vikings potentially going to the playoffs, man. I tell you. But I don't know. I'm confident. I think that things will go our way because they really haven't been this season, and I'm a firm believer in what falls down must come up. So
The Rams 49ers game in all likelihood will feature starters. The only caveat there is how would the Niners or how would the Rams beat the Niners? That's a rivalry game, just like Vikings Bears. And usually you can throw records out the window when those two teams play. Although it's in San Francisco. So if they want a first round bye, which is basically a free playoff win, then they will have incentive to chip off the Rams. Another thing that we were on pins and needles, if you're obsessed with this Viking stuff, like people that watch this show presumably are, is we had a quarterback debate. Another one, a carousel. Kevin O'Connell came out earlier this week and said that he's evaluating all 3 potential starters and suitors for the position: Joshua Dobbs, Nick Mullins, Jaren Hall. And what I say is a surprise. They're going with Jaren Hall. And I think it's a surprise because I don't know. I think that they enjoyed what Mullins could be, and I think there was this idea, well, we can coach him out of some of the stupid stuff, and I just don't know if that's possible. So with Jaren Hall, who is Tyler's guy, this is Tyler's Super Bowl. He wanted us to mention. What are your thoughts and expectations now? Because I think you've gone through many love affairs with all Vikings quarterbacks. Of course, Kirk. Certainly Dobbs. If you didn't, you were weird. And then we got pretty high on Mullins after the Bengals game, thinking he could sling it. So where in your pantheon of ardor, where's Jaren Hall going to live, or do you have to wait and see?
Well, I feel like even before Josh Dobbs, or Dubs, as I have lovingly nicknamed him, I feel like a lot of people, I was like, put Hall in. We don't know what he's capable of. And it's one of those things that I know the Vikings fandom is like, oh, what would have been if Kirk Cousins hadn't gotten injured? For me, as much as I'm on that train as well, I'm also on the what would have happened if Jaren Hall never got concussed train. I think
Mhm.
personally he would have balled out. I think we would have kept him in. And even if Nick Mullins came back, we'd be like, nah, Jaren Hall. But again, can't really go down that path. We got to talk about now. We got to talk about the future. I'm very excited about this.
Mhm.
The way that he was playing against the Packers week 8 and how he started week 9 against the Falcons has me very excited. His play style to me resembles that of Josh Allen, I think. His pocket presence is very good. He has a very good arm. I think that he is very, very hyper aware of when the pocket is collapsing and when he needs to go and when he needs to stay. Somebody threw together a highlight reel of him at BYU, and I was just kind of like clicking through it just to see a couple of stuff. And honest to God, the way that BYU sort of had their offense, and I mean, this is just based off the highlight reel, to me felt very similar of the Vikings offense with Kirk Cousins, of course, with a quarterback who can actually move out of the pocket
Mhm.
and doesn't run like 5 miles an hour on a good day. I think that this is probably the best scenario, especially going up against a Packers defense that I believe is 12th in the 12th in the most yards per pass that their opponent gives and 13th in how many in like way too many touchdowns. My brain doesn't work. You know what I'm saying.
Mhm.
But I think Jaren Hall is going to be the best case scenario against this Packers defense and against this Lions defense. And I also think that he is going to fill some holes that we currently don't have in the run game, which I know I said with Josh Dobbs, but I do firmly believe that we need a quarterback who can use his legs right now. So I'm very excited about Jaren Hall, and I am hoping that this is everything that Tyler wants and more, seeing as he will be there in person for the game.
We had the luxury during the first quarterback debate during the bye week. Tyler and I and you, we had the luxury of saying you might as well play Hall because you're not going to win a Super Bowl anyway. That's what you have as a fan, or in my case, a writer. But the coaches don't think like that. The coaches, Kevin O'Connell's coaching to stay employed, to win football games, to win a Super Bowl. So it was always a long shot that Hall will get the nod. But when these other two gentlemen have, the turnover problems, or in Dobbs' case, couldn't really get the ball downfield, it does make sense to turn back to Jaren Hall, and it creates a lot of excitement for the next couple days leading into it. Because even if he's no good, he has an excuse not to be good. He's a rookie, and the other two guys, it was like, what are we doing? You got to be smarter than this. Just tame it down. And the other thing I've been talking with Yannick Eckhart a lot this week is the way that this has been going around the NFL and for the Vikings. It seems like the backup quarterback gets 2 good games before he turns into a pumpkin. And that's really all we would need if your goal is to have fun in the postseason. So, if Hall has that dog in him, then you hopefully beat the Packers and then beat the Lions. And then you've got a week of building into the playoff hype to see what he could do at the Eagles or at the Lions. Speaking of the playoffs, my preseason prediction way back in August, I've got it documented. I predicted the Super Bowl to be the Ravens and the 49ers. And we saw a preview of that last weekend, and the Ravens were emphatically triumphant. So I want to know from you, knowing what you know about this NFL season, I don't think the Vikings will be included in your answer. Which two teams will visit the Super Bowl?
Um, I very much was a Niners Ravens individual too, actually, up until the Ravens Niners game. I don't know what it is about teams that have purple as their primary color, but I guess the Niners see that and they're like, "Oh God."
Mhm.
So the Ravens, yes, absolutely my AFC team. NFC wise, I mean, the Niners feel like the safe pick. I could
Mhm.
also see maybe the Cowboys, but I'm not really sold on anybody in the NFC this year. I'm really not. So, yeah, I guess the Cowboys, maybe the Niners. Otherwise, it's Ravens all the way, baby. Maybe the Lions as a Cinderella story, but even that to me is a stretch because they remind me too much of last year's Minnesota Vikings. So I hate to say it, but in my head, I see the Lions as a first round walkout.
That's why it was so well. It's so criminal that this season has gone the way of mediocrity for the Vikings at 7-8. Compounded by Cousins' injury, is because even before the season, I remember scouting the NFC. And at the time, you thought, well, the 49ers will probably have some sort of quarterback injury, and they've shown a couple times that they're human and they can be beat. So that was their deficiency. There's something not right about the Eagles, something really not right about the Eagles, whether it's locker room disharmony or flat out not as good as they were last year. I don't think the Lions will make a big run to the NFC Championship. I think they're beatable. They've been exposed a couple times. The Cowboys are guaranteed to lose in the divisional round of the postseason. It's just like the Vikings bad voodoo. You know, all this shit we say,
Yeah.
like, oh, the kicker's going to miss the game when field. Same thing for the Cowboys. When you apply it to the logic, they're not going to get very far in the postseason. But then after that, if the Vikings could have been good, it's criminal because that field is so wide open. The Rams are probably going to get in the dance, but they're not going to win the Super Bowl. Maybe the Vikings get in the postseason. Maybe it's the Packers. It's so wide open if you consider the 49ers beatable. So I will always lament, A, that Kirk got hurt, and B, Dobbs mania didn't continue because there was this pathway in the NFC. It's not quite like, oh, you have to go through Patrick Mahomes, and then when you're done with that, you got Justin Herbert, then you got Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. It was never going to be like that. So,
Right.
that's revisionist history. The last thing I'm going to ask you is, so you're not going to Vikings-Packers. That's a shame. Tyler is going to represent you. What do you expect in that game from, your analysis, and then what is your formal prediction?
Oh boy. This is a crazy game. I mean, you've got Jair Alexander not playing, whether it's because he's scared of JJ or because he made a really stupid decision at the Carolina Panthers. I mean, Vikings Twitter has been running crazy with all the theories about it. You also have them potentially missing out on AJ Dillon. I haven't heard any update as to whether or not he will be playing. I think he's still listed as questionable at this moment. We certainly are going to be missing TJ Hawkinson. We will definitely be missing Wonham. I do think, however, with JJ back, I think that'll build some confidence into our wide receiver room, and I think that it will bring out some opportunities for not just, Addison if he does play, or whoever steps in for him and Osborne. I also think it'll be good for the newer guys stepping in, Nick Muse and Josh Oliver, who have had a little bit of spurts of greatness this season, but now they're really stepping into in what I think will be a shared tight end one opportunity for both of them. I think, again, like I said, with Jaren Hall being able to use his legs the way that he does, and Ty Chandler, that'll bring some life back into our rush game. Ultimately, I am confident that we will get this win out of it. I have the Vikings winning 24-17. And I also think that Jordan Love is going to send 2 interceptions our way and maybe a forced sack fumble from everybody's favorite Swiss Army knife man, Josh Metellus.
I agree. And I was wrong last week. I thought the Vikings would beat the Lions, and it felt like they had the oomph to do it. It's just that a couple of those throws didn't have the zip necessary that Nick Mullins, I guess, doesn't have. I think the Vikings will win 27-20. And this isn't the reason they'll win, but this is my little speech, to Kevin O'Connell. This is why you were hired, sir. Right here. This game. Let me set the table. You're playing the Packers. This is the reason you were hired. You were playing at home. You were in prime time. You were on a holiday, New Year's Eve. And this is to eliminate the Packers from the postseason, to put your team a little bit closer with a little bit of help from the Rams or Seahawks. This is like, it's not necessarily going to be the biggest win of his career, but this is why you were hired for moments like these. So I expect them to show up. And I mean, a lot of this will be on Jaren Hall. If his poise is there, he even said himself that felt like a shot at Nick Mullins. He said, I don't have to play superhero ball. I just have to be smart. And I was like, oh, wow, bazing. But yeah, I think I know this is the moment. It's the Packers, and it's in Minneapolis, and it's to eliminate whoever loses is basically down to like a 2% chance of getting to the postseason. So I have the Vikings by 7, 27-20. All right. You have any closing arguments for the group?
I just wanted to say, please, Jaren Hall, if you are about to get sacked, just take the sack. Don't throw it up. Don't try to just throw it. Just go down. Please, God, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep doing this, man. I can't.
Isn't it? Have you noticed? I was watching some stuff this week, some other games, it seems like some other quarterbacks have been doing that too. Like they just
I
like,
don't
like, and it's like, no, you should never, only excuse to ever do that is on fourth down, when the game's on the line, and then you're like, all right, I'm just gonna throw it up for grabs. But it's so weird because we thought it was a Dobbs thing, and then it's a Mullins thing, and you're watching some quarterback play around the league. You're like, what are you doing?
why are you doing this? I also want to mention it's no surprise to me personally. I feel like we mentioned this on one of our quarterback debates. Nick Mullins was 5-11 with the Niners. Did nobody look into that before deciding he was our QB2 or?
Yeah. Well, the thing there was that was before that roster really got deep, like the way we know it now. 2020 was getting there. 2018 is when he had most of those starts. So it was twofold. We thought, all right, well, surely he's grown up and he knows not to throw those Brett Favrean picks. And then B, this Vikings team is probably a little bit more talented than the 2018 49ers, but neither one of them panned out. It's exactly what you said. The quarterback win thing prevailed. All right, Dakota, I think with Tyler next week, we'll all three be back in the saddle. If not, we hope to see you next Friday on a solo trip. But you have a wonderful new year, and we'll talk to you in 2024, all right?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dustin. You too.
Yeah, take it easy. Later.